there are curricula that we have used for some of my kids that work great for them and do not work for their siblings. And the idea of trying to tie them all in a box that the curriculum has to be state approved, I just don't think that's good for the kids.
Hello, and welcome to the Arts of Language podcast with Andrew Poudois, founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, or as many like to say, IEW. My name is Julie Walker, and I'm honored to serve Andrew and IEW as the Chief Marketing Officer. Our goal is to equip teachers and teaching parents with methods and materials which will aid them in training their students to become confident and competent communicators and thinkers. So, Andrew, this is one of those Homeschool 101 podcasts that we've been doing since 2020.
Are we ever going to do a Homeschool 102 or Homeschool 201, or are we just stuck at 101 forever?
Well, 101 is, all the other podcasts are 102 and beyond. You know, some of them get pretty much in the weeds, and maybe we can call that the graduate level homeschooling course. But this is, for those that are new to homeschooling, they can kind of do a search and filter on our website and find the podcasts that we specifically talk to them to help them decide, maybe homeschooling isn't as scary as I think it might be.
Yeah. And those who already know everything, they can just share this with all their friends who don't yet know everything.
Exactly. But we also try to include information that would be helpful to anyone because, we
don't really know everything.
We don't.
We're not ChatGPT. I finally figured out, Julie,
yes,
why I dislike interacting with ChatGPT so much. It behaves like an obnoxious 12-year-old.
Oh, okay.
It thinks it knows everything, and it thinks it's right about everything it knows, even when it's giving you wrong information.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like a grandchild.
Grandchild. Well, I say to people, you can tell that you've been homeschooling for a little while if there are certain acronyms, certain organizations that you can say really quickly.
Yes.
Like NCFCA.
I can do that.
You can do that one. How about this one? HSLDA.
Oh, I can do that even faster.
I know, right?
HSLDA.
HSLDA. Yeah. So,
and today we have
Darren Jones from HSLDA as a guest on our podcast. So, HSLDA, Darren Jones, welcome to our podcast. And please start by saying who you are, what you do, and what does HSLDA actually stand for?
All right. Thank you very much. So my name is Darren Jones, and I am one of the lawyers at HSLDA. My official title is Senior Counsel and Director of Group Services. Senior Counsel means I've been here a while and I know the law pretty well. And Director of Group Services says that most of my afternoons are spent talking with homeschool co-ops and support groups and state organizations all across the country. HSLDA stands for Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and our organization has been advocating and defending for homeschool rights since 1983.
1983? Yeah, that's way back. I don't even know how old I was in 1983. I could figure it out, but...
Well, I know my husband and I were dating then, and that's, I think, about the time that we decided that we were going to homeschool our boys, even before we were married.
Wow.
Yeah, we said, we didn't know we were going to have boys, but we got boys, and we decided to homeschool them.
I don't think I learned about HSLDA until like 91, 92.
Yeah, I don't know that I learned about, I learned about it. And Darren, you talked about the organizations, the group services that you support. I learned about it because of the homeschool organization that I joined had a discount to this organization. And at that time, so this would have been the late 80s, in Southern California, this was a very important thing that we were a part of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association because the legality of homeschooling hadn't been firmly established in the minds of the state of California.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it was legal, and HSLDA was there to
remind everybody.
Yes.
in sometimes a strong and effective way.
Yes.
So now that everybody knows, Darren, that homeschooling is legal, why do we still need HSLDA since everybody knows someone who homeschools? Obviously, I'm asking this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it seems to me that the work of HSLDA is as or maybe even more important now than it was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about what we've done just this last spring.
Okay.
HSLDA helped coordinate efforts to fight bills in a number of states that would have regulated homeschooling. For example, in Illinois, which right now is a great state to homeschool in, it would have added a lot of extra requirements like annual portfolio reviews and having to give information on your curriculum that you were going to use, the type of thing that Illinois has never required for 75 years. We had to fight similar bills in Virginia and New Jersey and even Oklahoma, which is a great state to homeschool in, as you guys know. And then we also worked with groups to promote homeschool-friendly bills. So we worked down in Texas with a group there to get a good bill passed about college admission. And in Indiana, their state organization did fantastic work on getting a diploma bill passed so that private school diplomas, which includes homeschools up there, would be recognized by the college system. And Wyoming updated its homeschool law. So a lot of our work now is kind of flying in the, I guess you call them the big guns from out of state to, again, remind people that homeschooling is not just legal, it's a great way to teach your kids. And therefore, you should either keep homeschool freedom or advance homeschool freedom, not go back on it.
So you talk about regulations, and I know that we have often run into that. Why not? Why not have more regulations in states? Why is that something that you're trying to protect, that parents have the freedom to do anything, including nothing?
That is such a devil's advocate question.
I know, it totally is.
Absolutely. So let me tell you from my personal experience. First of all, I was homeschooled my last couple years. Way back in the 80s and 90s, my parents decided they were going to homeschool us kids. New Hampshire back then had a law, actually a regulation where you went to the school board and asked permission. And Mom was a New Hampshire certified teacher. She'd been teaching for the last 8 or 9 years. She put together a curriculum list and some lesson plans and submitted it, and it got denied. She and Dad had to spend the next 2 weeks working on detailed lesson plans so that they could get approved. Then the law got changed to make it so that you just submitted a notice of intent and let them know that you were going to be homeschooling. And so Mom and Dad didn't have to spend those total of 3 or 4 weeks in the summer creating lesson plans for next February. They had more flexibility in their homeschooling. Then down here in Virginia, where my wife and I have homeschooled, we have a similar law here where we have to provide information to the superintendent at the beginning of the school year. But again, I don't have to go through and do detailed lesson plans for next spring. That's my Sunday afternoon job. I sit down and do lesson plans for the kids. So it gives me more flexibility. You know, if we're falling behind in this one, or we did some extra work on this subject, now I don't have to go in and amend my plan that got approved. Instead, I just homeschool my kids, and it works out better for everyone.
Yeah. And, you know, a parent that is choosing to homeschool, they're going to be invested. They love their children. I loved my boys and wanted to do the very best for them. You know, that we talk about the education of kings. You know, we wanted to raise them to be leaders, to be good citizens, to have the ability to go to college if that's what they wanted to do. So why would that need to be regulated? If you believe that the parents, and we do, if we believe parents are the best lovers of their kids and want to do what's best for them, then they're going to make those choices.
And that's the way that American law works. And that's what HSLDA has been pointing out for years is the law says parents have these rights. And the law says that parents should be allowed to exercise those rights.
Mm-hmm.
There are also safeguards in place, but in general, the homeschool laws in HSLDA's position should give parents maximum flexibility to figure out what works with their kids. And again, my personal experience is there are curricula that we have used for some of my kids that work great for them and do not work for their siblings. And the idea of trying to tie them all in a box that the curriculum has to be state approved or some similar system, I just don't think that's good for the kids.
Yeah, it's funny. The whole modern education mentality is basically, the premise that all kids are the same and that by merit of age, they should do the same thing in the same way, according to the same schedule to get the same results. And yet every single teacher out there knows how ridiculous this is. Every parent out there knows how ridiculous this is. So in a way, I think homeschooling is a beacon of truth in this modern fog, if you will, of government-run, finance-dictated educational patterns. So whether people homeschool or not, I think that they should appreciate the fact that homeschoolers exist because it's pointing out the truth that all kids are different.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of schools are trying to bring in that individualized education tools to their classrooms. But I think schools that are doing the best at this are relying on the parents to bring that flavor to their schools.
All the research on education shows that the more involved parents are in the education of children, whether they're in schools or not, the better the academic results, the better the social, the better the health. And so homeschool parents are choosing to be very, very involved.
Yes, exactly.
But Darren, the whole concept of homeschooling has changed a little bit from when we started, and now there are so many kind of things in between. How do you at HSLDA define homeschooling?
Well, I'm going to use a lawyer answer here, Andrew, and that is it depends, because a lot of the states actually define what homeschooling is. And so in those states, we go with the state definition. When I'm talking with homeschool support groups, like you say, there are a lot of the kind of traditional ones that maybe meet one morning or one afternoon a week, where the parents are doing a lot of the teaching, all the way up to groups that are meeting 3-4 days a week, but the parents still file homeschool paperwork. And so they call that a homeschool co-op. Some states will actually accept that as homeschooling. Some, like Washington and New York, don't. But HSLDA doesn't really define homeschooling because it is different state to state. Our position, though, is that parents directing the education of their children are going to make the decision that is best for their kids. So for my kids, homeschooling when they were in grades 1 and 2, a lot of it was done with mom at the kitchen table. As they got into middle school, some of it is done there with mom. Some of it's done in the evenings with dad when I come home and read history with them. As they get up into high school, they start taking more online courses and being more involved in homeschool events in the area. And so homeschooling for our family has always fit Virginia's definition of homeschooling, but it looks different at different stages with different kids.
So HSLDA is a membership organization, of course. And so people who are a part of HSLDA, they're paying an annual fee. What's the benefit of being a member of HSLDA?
Sure. There are actually a number of benefits. The one that most members sign up for is legal help. If they get a letter from their school district saying, we need more information on your notice of intent. If they get a truancy officer knocking on the door saying, where's your kid? You didn't withdraw them from school properly. If they have a social worker calling them up and saying, we've got reports that your kids are behind in their education. Those are the types of cases that HSLDA gets involved in all the time. We also help with college admissions if they're being discriminated against because they were homeschooled, or getting into the military, getting into trade schools. But I think the second most common reason that people join HSLDA is just to support the homeschool movement. Like I said, we're a national organization. If you join HSLDA and you're living in New Jersey, homeschooling is pretty easy in New Jersey, but you might be supporting the people across the river in New York where homeschooling is anything but easy. There's a ton of paperwork to do. And I think that's probably the second most common reason why people join. And that's why we have members who are grandparents. They've graduated all their kids and now their grandkids are being homeschooled. We've got public school teachers who don't even have kids yet, but are planning on when those kids come, they're going to homeschool them. We've got families who are right in the middle of homeschooling two of their kids while the third one goes to private school and the fourth one is at public school. We've got all sorts of people joining HSLDA because they believe in the cause.
That's great. I love that. So Andrew mentioned some of the different types of homeschooling that can be or isn't homeschooling or is. I know that we're seeing a trend with these micro or pod schools. Can you speak to that, Darren?
Yes. So as the director of group services, I talk with people all over the country who are doing new, interesting, and creative things with education. And one of those that's really kind of grown since COVID in 2020 is the idea of a pod, where parents are getting together and figuring out how to do education, maybe 4 or 5 families working together. Perhaps it's homeschooling a couple days a week. Perhaps it's bringing in a tutor on Tuesdays and Thursdays to teach all 8 kids together. Perhaps it's getting together to do homework on Fridays, whatever curriculum you're using. That's kind of a pod arrangement. And a micro school is maybe those 4 or 5 families hire 2 teachers, maybe an upper school and a lower school. I literally have talked with a leader down in Mississippi who has gone and rented an old one-room schoolhouse that my mother-in-law used when she was a little girl.
Wow.
Wow.
And now it's a micro school for homeschoolers that meets a couple days a week there. So I think that these ideas are great. And when I'm talking with them, I always encourage them, get the parents involved as much as you can. Some of them will actually do tutoring sessions to help the parents figure out, here's how to teach math. Here's how to teach reading. I've talked with some where all of the families have to use the same history curriculum or science books so that they can do projects together.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many ways to do this, and I love seeing the creativity.
I do too. I think it's almost as though homeschooling has become a bigger and better phenomena because of the great diversity of opportunity and curriculum options and people involved. And that has lots of upside. There's a few problems. One is, I think, people who kind of dislike the idea of parents having that freedom. They're a little more vocal. Sometimes they use the excuse of, well, we have to protect children from their parents, this kind of attitude. And then there's kind of a much larger range of not just options, but people kind of chasing homeschoolers. Here, buy this, use this, sign up for this. We've got online everything for you. So I really appreciate the fact that HSLDA has kind of been very steady. Their level, I love all you guys, honestly. I every one of the people I have ever met that works for HSLDA or in the past, I just respect so greatly that level-headedness, that I guess it's necessary to be a lawyer. You can't get,
right.
Too emotional or reactive, at least not in public. I hope that we will be able to continue to communicate to all the new homeschoolers why the HSLDA organization is such an asset to the movement, to the community, to the country, to the world.
There you go. That's right, because there's an international outreach as well for HSLDA. So, Darren, we are out of time, but there are two really important things that I still want to talk about. So, dear listener, just give us a few more minutes. I think it will be worth it for you to hear this. Darren, talk about your website. Talk about all the tremendous resources that are on hslda.org.
Sure. So if you are looking at homeschooling, we have a page for every single state that will tell you, here's how you start, here's how you withdraw your child from private or public school, here is any paperwork that needs to be filed, here are forms that you can use for that paperwork. And then we'll help them work through as the kids get older. Do they need to do a transcript? Do you need to get a work permit? What are some of the weird and quirky things about your state? There's an entire section devoted to homeschooling a child with special needs, and there's another whole section devoted to starting up homeschool groups.
I remember when I was starting my homeschool group that was connected with our church, I was sitting at the CHIA convention in California with a friend, and she and I were doing this together, and we were just trying to figure this out. And you know who walked up to us? Mike Smith. And he said, you should do this. And I was like, okay. And we did it, just like he told us to do that. That was just such a tremendous help. So I love going to see all the tremendous resources that are available. The other thing that is, of course, there is lots of organizations, state by state, that are these support groups, that are these state organizations that you can find on the HSLDA website. So we're not alone.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of get into homeschooling and they assume it's just a permanent right. One of the things I believe is, the price of liberty is vigilance.
Yep.
And so I'm constantly encouraging people, whether you think you're going to need legal defense or not, you should, out of an obligation to the greater community, support HSLDA. I always say, if you're not actually a member, it's probably a sin of omission. So, repent and join. And if you can, become a lifetime member.
Yes.
And support them significantly. And then support your state organizations as well, because those are the ones that do a lot of the watchdog legislation monitoring. And there are people who would like to regulate and, in a way, erode freedoms that you guys have worked so hard to build up over these past several decades.
So speaking of membership, we have, and this is our big announcement for today.
Okay.
Darren knows, Darren, because you're in charge of this, he and I finally figured out a way for IEW to offer something for our premium members. So Darren, you, with all of the organizations that you are working with, you have this opportunity where they can get a group discount. Well,
that's right.
The IEW group that we are now going to be offering a discount through is our premium members, Andrew. So
okay.
IEW premium members now have an opportunity to get a discount on their annual membership. So Darren, can you just speak to that for a moment? I'm so excited about this. We've been working on this for a long time.
So one of the things that I have always plugged for homeschoolers is you need to be involved with some sort of homeschool group, whether that's on a state or local level, a national organization. And some of those groups partner with us to give their members a $15 discount off their $150 annual membership with HSLDA. And I am delighted that the IEW premium members will be able to get that going forward.
Yep, super excited about that.
And that information is on the website, I assume.
Yeah,
Do you want to give an exact link?
Yeah, so IEW.com/premium has a list of all the benefits of being a premium member. And then if you are a premium member, some of the things that you get would be the copy of your book, However Imperfectly, Andrew. And so there's a coupon code that we provide to our premium members. And so along with that, there will be the number of our group that you can put in to get that $15 discount for your annual membership.
Excellent. Good. And I would be sad if I didn't let everyone know that I believe Darren and his family, they do use IEW with their kids and have for a long time. Is that true, Darren?
It is, absolutely. And my youngest son, Philip, just finished up one of your grammar books last year for his 10th grade year.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow.
Awesome.
Did he finish level 6?
I don't remember which level it was. That is a mom class rather than a dad class.
Of course.
Yeah, I will tell you that his language mechanics scores went up hugely in the last 2 years since we started using it. So there's a plug for you. It worked for us.
There you go. Fix it grammar. Well, thank you, Darren, so much for not only being part of our podcast today and just for all that great information to those that are considering homeschooling at our Homeschool 101, but also being willing to offer this discount to our premium membership.
And being a warrior on the front lines of freedom.
100%. Yep.
You are welcome. I'm awfully glad that I could come on today.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please subscribe to our podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify, or just visit us each week at iew.com/podcasts. Here you can also find show notes and relevant links from today's broadcast. One last thing, would you mind going to iTunes to rate and review our podcast? This really helps other smart, caring listeners like you find us. Thanks so much.